Okay, Behroze.
All right, start. 8 o'clock. All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad that I see so many names and faces from around the world connecting through different time zones. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to the program organized, the first program of the year, organized by the Ladies Wing, we, women entrepreneurs, of the World Zarathustri Chamber of Commerce. Most of you know me, but for those who don't, my name is Behroze Daruwalla, and I am the global chair for the Ladies Wing of the World Zarathustri Chamber of Commerce. And this program is organized by 3 chapters: Mumbai chapter, Bangalore chapter, and Toronto chapter. Since a lot of you don't know much about and I see a lot of non-members here, I just want to mention that while the World Zarathustri Chamber of Commerce was originated or established in the year 2000, the Ladies Wing was only established in 2015. It was established as we, women entrepreneurs, and the tagline is Women Empowerment. Having recognized the challenges and constraints faced by women in the current competitive environment, WE launched itself to empower women, entrepreneurs, professionals, and even housemakers to capitalize on their inherent capacity, capabilities, and abilities, just to realize their worth, their true potential, and to fulfill their aspirations, especially economically. With these broad objectives, WE organizes programs where you network, where we have workshops for entrepreneurs and professionals, where we bring in business acumen, business promotion activities, and certainly we highlight the achievements of ladies, women entrepreneurs and professionals. And this is the objective of this particular seminar also. So let's begin today's program, Flying High, Journey Through the Clouds. The idea of bringing you these lady pilots was very accidental to me. I was on a trip and the lockdown was called in. I got caught at Guwahati airport. Whilst we were sitting around just waiting for the flight, I saw 2 ladies walk up who are crew and our pilots towards our aircraft. A young boy sitting next to me, a Maharashtrian, just a teenager, he jumped up in his seat when he saw the lady captain and said in Marathi, "Aila, a pilot to baiko hai," which means, in short, "Oh Lord, we have a female pilot." All of us burst out laughing. And he was truly frightened. And it was like very skeptical when he saw the very slim, very elegantly, precisely dressed, uniformed lady walk in, talk calmly, and walk towards the ramp. That set me thinking, and I said, let's get these ladies together. Let's talk about the profession. Let's get rid of some of the myths. Let's find out what they have to go through to break the wall, break the veil of the clouds to achieve their final destination. That is why when I voiced this to my core team of very good workers in the WE division, all of them came up with one extra, upgraded my idea by saying, let's get pilots from various walks. So today we have a solo pilot, a young lady, female woman pilot who's flown around the world practically in a light aircraft. We have a captain from Indian Air Force, from Air Force, I think, Air Force. Then we have another one who's flown the rich and famous in a private sector. We have one and others from commercial sector, one from an international airline. This webinar will be in 3 parts. The first part will be a presentation by Arohi. The second part will be a discussion of panels where these captains will discuss and tell us about their journeys and their aspirations. And the last will be the question and answer session for you all. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I know it sounds cliche, but I suggest you sit back, relax, fasten your seatbelts, and let's fly on the journey through the clouds with our lady captains. Dilnavaz, over to you.
Thank you, Behroze. It is an absolute honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Arohi Pandit. While talking to her earlier this morning, not only was I truly impressed, but found quite a few interesting tidbits about her, which I have a permission to share with you all. Arohi Pandit, at 24 years old, truly represents the young Indian woman of today. Educated, adventurous, unafraid of the new, proud of the old, capable of breaking down barriers and building bridges, redefining roles and rewriting the rules. She completed her BSc in aviation and earned her wings at India's oldest and most respected flying school, the Bombay Flying Club. Selected by the Navy Blue Foundation, she eagerly signed up for their WE. Now, this is a coincidence. That too was a WE. This is Women Empowered Expedition with a record making all woman crew circumnavigating the world in a light sports aircraft with the call sign Victor Tango Nancy Bravo Foxtrot, aka Mahi. On a side note, Mahi means Mother Earth in Sanskrit. On a further side note, interestingly enough, Arohi calls her plane her tiny tuk tuk as it weighs less than 500 kilos. Unfortunately, this expedition is still pending its final phase, as due to COVID-19, they were not allowed to land in China. Arohi's training takes her across latitudes ranging from the tropics to the Arctic, over mountains, ice caps, deserts, and oceans in 3 continents and 20 countries. She embarked on this journey along with fellow graduate Keither Miskita on July 30th, 2018, taking off from Patiala, India, and flying 27 stops through Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, Serbia, Slovenia, Germany, France, UK, and Iceland. On September 6, 2018, she began the solo phase of the WE expedition, in which she set her 4 world records at just 23 years old. World record number 1, Arohi became the first woman in the world to fly across the Atlantic Ocean from Scotland to Canada with stops in Iceland and Greenland and landing in Canada on May 13, 2019. Here I must tell you that when she landed in Iceland, the locals there couldn't pronounce her name. And so she was nicknamed by them as the Indian Princess. World record number 2. Arohi also became the first woman in the world to fly over the treacherous Greenland ice caps in a light sports aircraft on May 4, 2019, in the most memorable and courageous flight of the expedition. World record number 3. Thereafter, Arohi's journey across Canada, along the Rockies, into Alaska, battling strong winds and forest fires in 22 flights over 9 Canadian provinces, made for another first world record. World record number 4. On August 21st, 2019, she achieved a cherished dream for herself and all at the foundation when she flew the midget Mahi over the mighty Pacific Ocean, non-stop from Alaska to East Russia, setting a world record, very unlikely to be broken for a long, long time. With that fourth world record ringing in your ears, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Arohi Pandit, who will tell you in her own words about flying high in the clouds. Over to you, Arohi.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for a wonderful introduction. I think the profile gave it all because that's all what I was going to talk about. But first of all, I would love to welcome every one of you and thank you so much, Behroze ma'am, for letting me be a part of this and allowing me to share my part of story. Uh, I know the introduction was obsessively long, so I'm just gonna talk something about myself in simple, normal words. Um, my name is Arohi Pandit, and I am 24 years old. I live in Mumbai, and I'm a commercial pilot and a light sport aircraft pilot. So, as a kid, my mom she quotes that I was a very difficult child. I just ate green peas for the initial years of my life, and I refused to walk in public places. I used to love carried around, and the third thing that I was a pathological liar. So for almost a decade, I insisted my parents to believe me that there was a snake that was living in my bedroom and came out every night to play with me. Obviously, they were petrified for the first few weeks, but then they realized that I'm a liar, so they let it go. But along with those jewels in my crown, I was also a very passionate kid. I was obsessed with animals, the color blue, and airplanes. I'm not guilty, I still I am. I love color blue, airplanes, and animals. Uh, so, aviation for me is pure passion and hard work. I love takeoffs, I love landings, I love to feel that power, I love to feel that speed. And even now, when you put me in front of any airplane, there's an entire jungle jumping in my stomach whenever I see any airplane, whether it's commercial or an Air Force. Um, I remember I was approximately 8 year old. I was waiting at Cochin Airport with my father to board our flight back to Bombay from Cochin. And I was bored as any 8 year old would be, listening to my dad's views on completely random things. And that was the first time I saw a pilot. And it also happened to be a female pilot for the very first time. So there was something about that lady that caught all my attention. Maybe it was her uniform or the way she walked, her personality, or maybe the fact that she looked absolutely beautiful and stunning in that white uniform. And I say that that's when my love affair with aviation began. So after completing my school at the age of 17, I started my flight training. And at the age of 21, I became a full-fledged commercial pilot. And back in 2018, I was approached by a team called WE Expedition, V Team, with the mission of flying around the world. So initially, I was excited. I mean, who would turn down an opportunity to fly an airplane across the world? And plus, you're getting paid for it. But there was one important point that I missed out on considering, and it also happened to be a very important one, that I have to cross two massive oceans and a crazily huge white ice cap on a light sport aircraft on an airplane called Sinus 912, which, like ma'am mentioned, I call it my little tuk-tuk, all by myself. So halfway through the journey, I realized that I should not be the one allowed to make decisions like this, especially when it involves my own life. But at that point, it was too late. So I managed to do it and also became the first woman pilot in the world to do so. During this journey, I covered 23 countries. For the first few flights from India to Scotland, I had a co-pilot who is a very dear friend of mine, Kiter, with me. And now you can imagine flying a super light airplane as small as an SUV car, and space as confined as sitting in an auto rickshaw, and flying it across different countries and continents. It's um it's just you, the sky, and your flight skills, hopefully to keep you from falling to the ground. So today I'm here to share with all of you that how my team and I actually made it happen, and what kept us going to achieve this dream. Um, so believe me or not, my best and the worst decision was to fly over the Atlantic Ocean. Best because it's so beautiful, it's the view is so beautiful, and worst because like what the hell was I even thinking? So I remember when I flew over the ocean, Atlantic and the Pacific, there was water as far as I could see. um, I could see the reason. I actually understood the reason why Earth is called a blue marble. The beauty was breathtaking and the experience was surreal. But I would never do that again, and especially not in an ultralight aircraft. You will know why. Uh, the challenges in the mission were immense, and the biggest challenge among all was obviously the weather. Um, I was stuck in bad weather so many times. I was flying in rain, winds, icing conditions all the time. But I cannot take all the credit because there were a lot of people working behind my back to make sure every flight is possible. From the flight operation teams who made sure that the airplane gets permission and the pilots get permission to cross the international borders, to the admin team who made sure that who were working on hotels and visa and for places for me to stay and eat. And the most important were the wonderful sponsors who made sure that we are provided with the best services all across the globe, and that we do not run out of funds, which was very important for this project. I always say that it takes a village to make an airplane get airborne. um, so I've been flying for 6 years now, and even today every flight is a challenge for me. And in every flight I realize that, oh, like aise bhi ho sakta hai, is this possible? Which is funny, but you know what they say, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. So that is true. So flying over the ocean was a very humbling experience. It was just your little plane with light blue sky above and dark blue sea, or sometimes shining white ice below. No other experience could have matched that level of thrill ever after. So here's a fun fact. So before crossing the ocean, I wondered what difficult it might hold, But to be very honest, apart from not being to hold my pee for more than 5 hours, it was manageable because I was there in a confined space of like two-seater airplane with the immersion suit on my body and holding my pee, flying for 5 hours. It was one of the most difficult thing and one of the most difficult flight I had to do. Um, so looking back, I sometimes still wonder where I got the courage for making such brave choices and overcoming self-doubt, because the stakes were so high and no one would have faulted me for backing out. And then I remember that as nice as it is to it sounds to finally have a solo pilot tag, it is only with the support of those who believe in you, or those who believed in me, that I was able to get that far. So from my father, who kept calling me like 10 times a day, just asking me to eat on time and not to talk to to strangers in new countries, to people around the world who helped me during my journey. So yeah, this was kind of my journey, but I do have a small presentation for all of you guys just to get a brief of what it actually looked like. So I'm just going to share the screen. All right. So just like the organization, even my organization had WE Expedition, which stands for Women Empowerment, and it's still ongoing, and it's all woman crew, first time, never done before, on a light sport aircraft, and that's me in Iceland. It's happy right before crossing the ocean. This is the airplane which like you can see why I call it a tuk-tuk. It's literally just two-seat with 80 horsepower engine. So just to give you like a brief idea, 80 horsepower engine is used on the go-karts, the tiny go-karts. And I was given a challenge to fly on this. And like it mentions, the max takeoff weight, like the all-up weight, is 472.5 kg. That's literally lighter than any heavy bullet you can drive. Uh, so this is my co-pilot Kiter. So she and I, we were selected from flying club. We were freshly out of flight school, and I remember that, when I first mentioned my parents that, a team has approached me for such things, and the first question was like, who are you going with? I'm like, Kiter. So they're like, what? You like combined, you don't even have enough hours, are you gone crazy? They went all bonkers. But eventually everything turned out to be okay, and two of us left India with this little Mahi airplane, we call it today. uh, so basically, a circumnavigation of the Earth in a light sport aircraft, it is a difficult feat because it has only been accomplished 5 times before and never by a woman. So I think this information was given before. So W expedition took off from Patiala, India on July 30th, 2018 and landed in Colosso, Greenland 51 days later to complete phase 1 of the expedition from tropic to Arctic, the first time in the world that an all-woman team has flown a light sport aircraft from India to Greenland. So phase 2 was supposed to be flown alone, and I was selected for it. I crossed the Atlantic Ocean from Wick, Scotland to Iqaluit, Greenland, crossing the Greenland ice caps across Canada, later crossing the Pacific Ocean, and became the first woman pilot in the world to do so. So these are like my favorite pictures I wanted to share with you all. I don't know how many of you all are aware about the captain here, but he's Captain Kurain. He's the same commander who escorted Captain Abhinandan on the border when he was returning back to India. And when I saw him for the first time on the TV, I bragged so much, like, this is the same captain who escorted us from Pakistan to Iran. So this was my first international flight ever to do, like, my first flight for the expedition, which was an international leg. It was the international leg ever I would do. The picture on right is from Iran. So the airplane which I was flying, the maximum height it could fly was 10,000 feet. And here we are flying at 10,000 feet, but the mountains were so close. I remember there was a time we were flying near the elevation of near the terrain of 9,500 feet, 9,600 feet, and luckily I had a co-pilot with me then. And for the very first flight, we just freaked out because of the cloud covering, we couldn't see the peaks of the mountains, and we completely lost it. It was like a chaos, but somehow with low experience we managed to get out of the bad weather and sail peacefully. The third picture is from Iran. So in Iran, we had to wear those. We just had to cover our head because that's the rule, and we had to wear full sleeves, which is beautiful because, like, one of the beautiful compliment I've got is from an Iranian guy telling me that you have never looked so beautiful, and I agree to him. The fourth picture, like I mentioned before that the circumnavigation is being done 4 times by a man, and the guy sitting on the right side in the blue shirt he's a Slovenian pilot called Matthews. He's done it 3 times before me. So out of the 4, he's done it 3 times, and he's one of the mentor. I really look up to him, and he's a fantastic pilot. These are few pictures from a formation flight. I remember the cloud picture on right, I remember clicking it when I lost control with Ahmedabad control while we were entering into Karachi. So this was a beautiful memory for both of us. And this is us flying with covering our heads. This is one of the picture I'm very proud of because this was after completing my 4th world record. So I'm standing at an airport near East Russia called Anadir. And like I said, like, even though I look happy, but inside I just wanted to go and empty my bladder because I was flying for more than 5 hours. And obviously when you land and you make records, people want to have a picture with you. But to be very honest, I just wanted to pee and like have relief moment for a while. Yeah, so when you cross oceans, especially in a light sport aircraft or any ultralight or motor glider, it's important to go solo, and it's very important to have emergency equipments on board. So those were like solo life raft, life jacket, handle GPS in case your on-screen GPS fails. You need to have handled RT, there's a knife, immersion suit, the yellow suit, which was hoping to keep me alive in case I crash for 45 minutes. Food packages for 3 days, medical kit, water purifying kits, protein bars. But the most important part of my journey were these two. So meet Mr. Bellu on left. He's an Icelandic whale. He joined me before the Atlantic crossing, and the right one is Mr. Berry. I know they're typical Indian names, but I just had to name them something. So these two have I think they have covered like 23 countries with me in flight, and they were like my emotional support. Everyone needs one when you get into a bad weather all by yourself. Yes, so I have attached like few of my favorite pictures I would love you all to see. So like I mentioned, Atlantic was one of the most difficult flight for me. So here's how it looks. It started with a rainbow. I was very happy. I took off. I saw a rainbow. I started texting my dad. I sent him a picture because I had good range till then. And later it turned out to be how it looks on right, with no visibility. I was stuck in the rain. I couldn't see what's happening. Um, my cruising altitude, my flight path altitude was supposed to be 5,000 feet, but I ended up coming as low as 500 feet to avoid icing. And a lot of other things, and it turned out to be this way. But again, good things. I did get into good weather. So this is the beautiful Atlantic Ocean. This is the view I was talking about. It's so beautiful, and what my eyes have seen, I don't know, the pictures are they're not as beautiful as what my eyes had viewed that time. And like I said, for the emergency equipment, we had to carry the handle GPS because it ditched me. The GPS went off, and I was just hovering around for good 15 minutes just to get good signals. And yeah, these are the pictures after my crossing. The left one is after the Atlantic, and right one is after the Pacific Ocean. Uh, I don't know how many of you all are SRK fans, Shah Rukh Khan, but if you all have seen Dilwale and you all remember the Gerua song, this is the same airplane which was shot in Iceland. And to be very honest, you're not really allowed to fly over this airplane, but it was very expensive. They were charging me 300 euros just to visit, but then I decided to fly with a local pilot and see it myself through airplane. And the right picture is the first time I saw an iceberg. This was while flying, and for the very first time I saw a huge iceberg, and I had to take a picture of it. Below left are the two favorite things of my life: kids and dogs. Greenlandic dogs are super cute. And right below is the famous volcano which was erupted, Eyjafjallajökull, which had stopped all the flights to Europe. So that's the famous volcano which is settled down obviously now. I had a chance to fly over it. The left one picture is from Greenland ice cap. So just to give you a brief, Greenland ice cap is one of the second largest ice cap in the world, and I had a chance to fly over it, and the weather was pretty good, so I did have a chance to fly low and click beautiful pictures. And the right picture is from Pacific Ocean. So yeah, these are the pictures I wanted to share with you guys, and pretty much that's it. That is my journey. It was full of lessons, full of I would say blessings, because there were times when I was stuck in a terrible weather, and I just used to speak to myself like, what are you doing? Why did you do this? But somehow I did manage to get out of it, and here it is. Yes.
Thank you, Arohi. What a journey you've had. Let's move on to the second program because we're running a little late behind. I will not give you detailed information about our next captains, just a cursory one, because during the course of conversation and discussions, you will get to know them better. I'd like to introduce one of the ladies on the panel, Captain Priya Paul. Yesti, can you? She's from the first batch of women pilots of Indian Air Force, and she's now flying a commercial airline. Next is Captain Kainaz Vakil. Kainaz was supposed to be with us in Bombay. She is in London. She got stuck in London. And Kainaz, a special thank you to you for coming on board all the way from there and making sure you attend our webinar with us. She comes from a family of airline people. Both her parents are from airline people. Most of her family members, I was given to understand, are also. So she's the one who probably breathes, eats the airline lingo all day long. The next we have is Captain Ramona Vesuvala. She also flies a commercial airline, but before she was with a commercial airline, she flew with a private sector, and she flew the rich and the famous all around. She's well versed with all happenings in our Hollywood and Bollywood, I guess. She has two young kids. She's a foodie, calls them affectionately piglets. But I want to know how she balances her family life with little kids and her profession of this high tension and pressure. And finally, we have another young pilot, First Officer Mehr Sethna. She comes from a family of accountants. Her family members, I believe, are good with numbers and figures. And so Mehr just followed the line. But the fire in her belly had not died down. She was interested in flying, and we'll hear from her how she moved and she switched and finally achieved her dream. So let's talk to each of them. Ladies, I would like to put a question. We'll let Arohi rest for a little while. Starting with you, Captain Priya, tell us about your journey, why you decided to take up this profession, and how easy was it or how difficult was it? Just shortly tell us, how did you achieve it? How did you get there?
Very good evening to everyone. I'm Priya, and when you ask this to me, my story is so boring compared to Arohi. So it just happened that when I finished my graduation and I was honestly looking for a job, and I don't think I ever thought about pilots or women being in aviation at that point of view. I grew up in Kerala. My father was working there, and he had a lot of friends in the Navy. So quite often for the weekends, we used to go and visit his friends in the Navy, and I just found that amazing, the whole campus and the men in uniform and everything. So from a very small age, I kind of decided, okay, I'm going to marry a naval officer. That's for sure. I don't think I even thought about my career, but then I definitely decided I'm going to marry a naval officer. So one fine day, my father tells me when I just finished my graduation, he's like, you don't have to marry a naval officer, you can be one. And I couldn't believe it when he said that, because I was quite a tomboy and quite an adventurous person. So I said, why not? And I applied for it. And it so happened that I didn't have the age for the application. So they wrote back to me saying, apply after 6 months. And then a few weeks later, my father said, how about joining the Air Force? The Air Force has come out with an ad. I said, no, I'll wait for the Navy because the Navy has very smart officers and the guys are very smart there. And then he was like, no, it's like for flying. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe that, something like being a pilot. So he says it's for the first batch of women pilots. So, like a typical, I come from a very middle class family, and my mom was obviously, we were 3 girls in the house. So my mom always worried about getting us married and those aspects of life. So first thing she said, oh, no, if she joins the Air Force, who will marry her? And I was like 19, and who is thinking of marriage at that point of time? And then we look at the ad, and it was for 8 pilots in the whole of India. So my mom was like, oh, okay, you can apply. You're not going to get through. Definitely you're not going to get through. It's too much of a challenge. But then my father was like quite keen that I should try. So I did. And then for those of you who know, the Air Force has its series of stages of induction. And I just went by the flow. I honestly had no clue about the Air Force, no one from the military, nobody from aviation. And I just went through the flow. And then 2 months later, I just found myself one among the first batch, and I was in the Air Force Academy in Hyderabad. So that's my story at 19. And today, after serving for 10 years in the Air Force, I took a break when I had my kids. Then I joined Kingfisher. I was with them till finally they told us that's it. And again, I took a break because my kids were again at 9th and 10th. And I presently work for AirAsia India, which has been in India since 2013. So I joined them almost at the beginning. It's been almost 7 years. And I'm married. Again, I met my husband in the Air Force, thankfully. And I have 2 daughters. My older one's 20, my younger one's 17. And my daughter has her CPL right now. And so when I just was watching Arohi's presentation, it's so exciting to when you hear things like this and you wish that you had done something like that. But when you're a mother of a 20-year-old and she has a CPL, she did her flying in New Zealand. And I was like, don't take pictures. You should fly. You should have your hands on the controls. And, emotions and the things that you go through are so different. I mean, I have done a lot of things in the Air Force as well. I mean, we've been trained to, and I've done a lot of daring things. But when you're a mother now and Arohi's story is so inspiring and so wonderful. But like I said, I go through different emotions right now.
Ramona?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So a little bit about myself. Like Priya said, our story is not half as exciting as Arohi's, but all the same. So for me, there's nobody in my family who is remotely connected to aviation. It started off with, I think I was about 10 or 11. I had a cousin who I didn't get along with too well. And she says one day, I'm going to be an air hostess. So my thing to that was that I'm going to be a pilot, because I thought the only way to bully her and be one up on her was to be a pilot. That's how it started. It went on for a few years, and everybody in the family said, she'll outgrow it, because everybody at some stage wants to be a pilot. When I was in the 9th grade, my mom had cancer. I came in close contact with Dr. Sultan Pradhan, who's a brilliant oncosurgeon, and I wanted to be him. I wanted to make people feel the way he made us feel. So I thought I wanted to do surgery for a bit, but after exploring that option, I said 16, 18 years, I don't think I have it in me to study that long. Now the catch here is, nobody told me that being a pilot, I'll have to study all my life. It's been 23 years and I'm still studying. So if anybody out there who wants to be a pilot, please note it's not wearing a uniform, pushing a few buttons and getting from Bombay to London. But I'm glad I did it. I've had a great run. I was lucky. I got my CPL in 97. I got a job in 99 with Tata Steel. Dr. Irani gave me my first break. I was there in Jamshedpur for about 5 years. Then I got an internal transfer within the Tata group. I came to Taj Air, where, like Behroze said, flew the rich and the famous. And I was there for a total of 17 years. And then the last 4 years I've been with an airline, and I'm enjoying that as well. I have 2 children. My older one is 4.5. My younger one is just short of 2, going on 13. And the only way to manage work and 2 young children is, like they say, you need a village. So you need your parents and your in-laws and the husband and the house help and the neighbors and the friends and extended family. And of course, a great employer. So that's been my journey so far. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Thanks, Behroze.
Thanks, Ramona. Kainaz, is it cold out there?
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Yes, I am shivering to a next level.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, I am humbled and honored to be a part of such a fantastic panel sitting around here. And yes, enjoying the new normal. Thanks to that, I can at least talk to you guys. But I would like to give you a little brief about myself. As Behroze auntie mentioned, I'm born and brought up in Mumbai. I belong to a family where my parents have been in aviation. They've been cabin crew and retired doing that job and enjoyed it. So aviation was something which is very natural to me, to have a natural affinity towards. And as time passed, once I finished my schooling, that's when I decided seriously I wanted to get into aviation as a pilot. And I have to take this opportunity to thank my parents, because if it wasn't them, I know a lot of people have various struggles. And one of the first struggle that anybody has to fulfill their wish is to convince their near and dear ones that they can do it. For me, my parents were very supportive. They do not look at any profession based on gender, which is something which is very encouraging to me. After which after completing my 12th grade, I went to Texas and did my initial flying there. Came back and eventually joined an international airline company in India. And since then, I've been with the same company, and currently I'm flying on the Gulf and Far East sectors. I've had my share of ups and downs like anybody else does in any profession. And I just think what's important is to kind of believe in yourself and to just keep doing it. Certain times we all think, when I was younger rather, I thought that, pilots, I never knew any female pilots at that point. Or rather, I never knew any pilot at that point. And slowly you just keep taking each day as it comes. And before you know it, you're past that bridge. And that's what kept me going. And I think that's the key to doing anything is just to believe in yourself. And it's not that you read it in your quote, believe in yourself. It's something that you work on a daily basis, because there are so many moments of self-doubt, but you have to just continue doing that. And the fact that I'm getting this opportunity to speak with all these people makes me individually feel really nice, that if I can motivate even one person around the globe, then why not? I think that's fantastic. So thank you so much, Behroze Auntie, for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this. Thank you.
Welcome, Kainaz. We are happy you do the community proud.
Thank you so much.
Our young, not very experienced first officer, Mehr Sethna. Mehr, come on, tell us, how did you get here?
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me. I am a little nervous. I've never done this, so I might be a little clumsy, so please bear with me. So basically, I always wanted to become a pilot when I was in school. And well, my brother-in-law is a pilot as well. In 2008, when I did my 10th, the scene wasn't very good. And my parents were like, are you sure? Do you want to do anything else apart from becoming a pilot to join the science stream? There's always that confusion when you're in the 10th, whether to take science, arts, commerce. It was like a mess. So my parents, everyone in my family, there's no one except for my elder sister who did arts. Even she had to face a lot of backlash from my parents for taking up arts, because they're like, there's no future, nothing there. So I finally, there was nothing else I wanted to do in the science field. So I stuck with what my parents had to say, and I did commerce. Then once when I was in the, I didn't just want to do my graduation. So along with that, I was pursuing to become a company secretary, what my dad does for a living. And I was interning after my graduation. I tried to, get myself to settle into that atmosphere of being behind the desk, and it didn't work for me. Going for audits and all that wasn't my cup of tea. And I remember I was just sitting one day outside my house, just wondering, like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Is this what I want to do all throughout? And Dad was, my father, he asked me, are you happy with what you're doing? I was like, yeah, I guess I'll be fine. I will finish what I have taken on. I didn't just want to do my graduation. And he gave me that choice, that option. He said, you know what, it's still not too late. Do you still want to become a pilot? And I said, I think it's too late. I was already 24 by then. And I remember seeing people who are like way younger to me, finishing CPL already, flying and flying commercially and everything. And I was like, I think I'm a little old to start off now and it'll take forever. But he said, you know what, just go ahead. So luckily, I had my brother-in-law to help me out, under his guidance. And yeah, of course, family support, my parents. Mom was, of course, a little worried because she was like, you haven't finished this. How can you just skip and jump fields? Because it was like going through everything all over again. I had to do my science, physics, maths again in the 12th. And yeah, that was one challenge. Like after 7 years of doing commerce, doing accounts, doing law, jumping into science was a challenge. But yeah, it was fun. And then once I started off, there was no looking back. And I'm glad I took that step thanks to my parents. So yeah, and this is where I am.
Okay, ladies, it seems your journey hasn't been really like what we see about in Hollywood and Bollywood, the struggles, the tears, the things like that. So let me ask you a straightforward question. What are the challenges? You seem to have guys just sailed through, okay, you made up your mind and you did it and you got away with it. You must be having qualities, otherwise it would not have been easy. I, applaud you for that. But looking at that skepticism that I still runs through my mind about that young Marathi guy who was like looking at the captain with such skepticism and such horror, I was wondering if, with your profile and with your journeys, did you guys meet any challenges? I mean, apart from womanizing or something like that, anything else that you were looked down upon or people thought you couldn't achieve, or you just didn't have any of that? And we all hear all these tales which are not true. These are myths. So break that myth for me. Priya?
Okay, let me say something which somebody told me when I joined the Air Force. I think we all have our self-doubt, and when we're starting something new, it is quite scary actually. So when I went to the Air Force, I'm like I said, I'm from the first batch of the women in the Air Force, pilots rather. We had 2 batches of ground duties before I joined. One of my instructors, my first instructor, in fact, when he saw us like all of us, like most of us who joined were so surprisingly South Indians. And I'm a South Indian who was born and brought up in Kerala and never stepped anything beyond Tamil Nadu. And Hyderabad was the northernmost part at that point of time when I had gone to the academy. Very middle class, skeptical girl. And the first thing he said was, the aircraft doesn't know whether you're a boy or a girl. That is something that you shouldn't forget. And honestly speaking, to fly an aircraft, there is no brute force required. I mean, the gentler you're with the machine, the better she flies. So in fact, this is what he told us. So I don't think being a woman was major challenge in terms of flying the aircraft. Yes, being a part of the Air Force, we had a lot of other physical activities to do. But I think if you have the grit and the determination to do it, and for me, in my case, my father was so proud that when I got in. And I don't know if any of you, most of you wouldn't know that in the Air Force, at every step, you have your assessments. And if you don't come up to the standards, you don't go to the next phase. So in flying, we have our solo phase, which is the first major assessment that we go through. And if you don't make it, if you're solo within the specified number of hours, then you have to leave the Air Force. And at my time, you had to leave the Air Force. For the boys, they could join the other branches, and presently the girls also can join into the other branches. But in my batch, it was to leave. So to start with, we were 13 of us to join, and I was seeing my batchmates leave. So, we were 13 to start and we were 7 to pass out. So I saw 6 of my batchmates leave at various phases of this flight. So all I had to do was like, oh my God, I have to do this. I have to keep daddy happy. I have to make him proud. My mom was not too keen initially, but then afterwards I could see her, fervently praying that I go through and don't have any issues. And it was like, okay, I have to prove a point to mommy. I have to keep daddy happy, So it was that which keep us going. And then you realize challenges happen in any phase of life. You go to any job, you go to any career, you do have your challenges. You do have to deal with men at workplace. You do have to deal with other issues. But I think personally, Air Force was a wonderful organization, which, helped us quite well. I didn't really feel I was the first batch or I was a pioneer in something. I had a wonderful time with something that I think the boys also would have gone through. So that was what I wanted to say. And flying in the civil has been nothing. Actually, it was much more simpler because the civil has many more pilots and they've been having them. It's been different, but again, it's very nice. So that is my point of view in terms of what I had to go through.
Tell us, Priya, your transition from the Air Force to the civil, since you touched upon it. If you can tell us, was it,
it wasn't too bad. In fact, it was a pleasant change. It's quite different, the kind of flying that we do in the Air Force and the kind of flying that we do in the commercial.
We want to hear that.
Okay, so to start with, the Air Force, you can do the kind of flying depending on which unit you're posted to. So I'm flying a particular aircraft. I used to fly the Avrose, the HS748, which used to be in Air India as well earlier. So I started flying that. I used to fly that, and the Avrose do many roles depending on which the unit is. We carry cargo, we carry passengers, we do casevac, we do drops. So, and we also do training. So I've done low-level flying with a big aircraft, 500 feet above ground. I have taken part in so many of the evacuation, flood relief, carrying cargo for the Army support services. So depending on what kind of unit I was posted to, that was the role of the unit. So we've done different flying. So in my 10 years, I'm a short service officer, so I served for 10 years. In my 10 years, I was posted in 4 units, and each unit was different, from carrying VIPs of the Air Force as well as the government, right, to training young cadets, where we did all kind of flying in terms of formation, low level, everything. And commercial, it's the same. It's the same day in, day out. And sometimes you're doing the same route. And you start looking at the passengers and you know where this aircraft is going to. It's going to go up because you see a lot of happy people, summer clothes, and then you know you're flying to Guwahati because you have the same kind of people. So it's the same straight and level flight with your cup of tea and your meal on board. There are not many challenges except for the weather and maybe a disruptive passenger once in a while, which to brighten up the day. So I think that's the major difference between commercial flying and military flying. And military flying, there's every day something new and something to look forward and a challenge every day. And a different kind of satisfaction, because when you've got somebody who was injured to the hospital in time and saved his life, it feels amazing. So that is a different thing.
Ramona, you want to tell us anything about any challenges you have faced and your transition from the private flying for just one person or one party to the commercial, Tom, Dick and Harry?
Nah. Actually, when I went to Jamshedpur, I was 20 years old, and I don't think they'd never had a woman before. And I don't think they'd had someone as young before either. So I just once happened to find my biodata that was lying around. It wasn't supposed to be in my hands. I don't know how I found it. And on that it was written, what was highlighted was female, and highlighted was my age. And next to that, somebody had written, "Are we brave enough?" And the reply was written, "Yes, we are, and we should give her a chance. Why not?" Because the average age there, I think, was about 50, people coming from the Air Force who'd done like 20 years, not a short service commission. But never once did they make me feel like, oh, she wouldn't manage because she's a girl or because she's young. I mean, they really took me under their wing, from the pilots to the management to everybody. And Jamshedpur is honestly the best thing that has happened to me, I think, in terms of finding friends, the lifestyle, teaching me about aviation. And then I came to Bombay, which was, that wasn't really the private sector, that was corporate. So we used to do charters. So like you said, individual parties and stuff. And that was fun. That was interesting. I got to meet a lot of interesting people. And then after that, the airline happened. All of it has its perks. It's all different, like Priya said. It's I mean, there's not too much happening in an airline apart from an unruly passenger and weather, and most of it is handed to you on a platter in an airline. You really don't have to do much apart from the flying, whereas in the corporate and the private, you do everything and then you do the flying. So
No,
it's been...
explain that when you say everything, just so that we all understand what you mean. You guys are taking it for granted that we understand what you're...
So basically, because when you, nowadays, I think all companies have a handler and stuff, but initially when we joined, from filing a flight plan, which meant going to ATC, to getting your own weather, to refueling, to, you know, catering, to cleaning the bathrooms, to parking, tying up the aircraft, draining the tanks if you're in icing, you know, in a place where it's going to get iced. Where in an airline, you have an engineer, dispatcher, the guy who sends you the weather briefing. Or if I'm going, say, to the US, like Arohi said, she had somebody to do the flight planning for her. I'm sitting with 4 charts, opening up 4 charts, you know, trying to put them together on a long table, which is 6 feet long, trying to figure out what route I want to take. So in an airline, you don't have to do any of that. It's all given to you and you just fly.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it was a good experience right at the beginning because you got to learn a lot doing that. But now that I'm old, I'm enjoying this, everything given to me. I don't have to do much.
Easy.
The only person I think who was skeptical about my flying was my grandfather, God bless his soul. And we used to have dinner every night. And we used to discuss about, you know, flying, what to do, where to go, who to talk to, who to call, because we had nobody in the family. And I think he couldn't take it anymore. One night he says, "Roj bhankas karoj kai flying karwani na thi," which means that, you know, you guys, she's not going to do any flying and you're really chewing my brain. I think that's about the translation. And I said, if I manage, what will you give me? And he says, take whatever you want. So he used to wear one Rolex watch that was given to him on his wedding. And I said, will you give me that watch? And he said, yeah, take it. So I remember I did my PPL in Texas and I came back 3 o'clock in the morning. The first thing I did, I went, knocked on his door and said, I've got my PPL. So technically I'm a pilot. So you should give me the watch. But I will wait till I get my commercial pilot license and I'll come back to take what's mine. And he says, no, you have to get a job. I said, no, the deal was I have to become a pilot. It didn't say anywhere I need to get a job because jobs were so scarce at that time. Anyways, I don't know what my grandmother told him. Next morning, he came with the watch and the box and he says, I lay left before I change my mind. So I took the watch. It's still with me. So apart from that, everybody else was really kind. Like I said, Dr. Irani gave me my first break. He was really brave. And the other people who were there when I needed to come to Bombay because my father was not well. The MD at that time, Mr. Muthuraman, was also brilliant. He wrote a note for me to Mr. Tata so that I could get the internal transfer. And then I came to the airline because I wanted a more stable, you know, roster to say with the 2 children. I couldn't handle the corporate flying because we didn't really have a roster. We didn't really know what we were doing for the rest of the month. So this is a better deal for me right now. And both of them have been great. No complaint.
Did you get this, you know, family kind of treatment because you were in the Tata group, the like a Zarathustra company, or you think any other company would have also looked after you so well?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think it was because I was a Parsi or I was a Zarathustra. I just think that the values and the morals and this thing that I saw at Tata Steel,
okay,
I haven't seen that anywhere else. You know, I mean, not even in like the rest of the Tata companies. I'm not saying that they're not the same, but I'm saying what I have seen there.
Okay.
I just think it was unbelievable. And maybe another company would have looked after me, but I don't know. Just everybody, the people over there, the culture in that town, everybody is there for everybody. I mean, it has its negatives also because it's a small town, everybody knows you. So, you know, you said, hi, I'm Ramona, and they'd be, oh, so you're the lady pilot. You know, it was like a tag, lady pilot. And I was like, yeah, I'm the lady pilot. I mean, but I don't think it was because I was a Zoroastrian or because I was a Jarthusti. Nobody really knew that. Nobody really cared. I just think they would have done that for anybody.
What about you, Kainaz and Mehr? Any challenges, or since Kainaz, you had your own people in the airline whilst you were working?
Yes, I did. So, but they were in a different department. So for me, all I knew was I wanted to be a pilot. How to become one? Absolutely no clue. And that time Google wasn't as good as it is today. So actually we would do something and realize, oh, this is step 2. We have not done step 1. So then go back, and that would keep happening. There were a lot of people who were very kind and generous, who kind of, gave me the correct direction. But by the time you get to your commercial pilot license, it has been quite some time. You don't know which direction to go. A lot of times you are clueless, because as I said, I did not know. Like back then, I did my flying in 2005. So that time there wasn't any set rules for becoming a pilot, because it was considered a bit unconventional. So yes, I did have my fair share of ups and downs to become one. And even after getting a job, after that, I've faced a couple of ups and downs. But I think that's a part and parcel of every profession. And I think more than focusing on those things, we should actually look at the more positive things that come out of it. It makes you stronger. It makes you believe more in yourself. It makes you believe more in your dream, which is something that I like to look at more. And as you mentioned that you had an episode, that's how this brainwave came to you of doing this meeting. I experienced something like this quite at the starting of my career when I had joined, and I was barely, I think, 20 odd years that time, 20 or 21. And the captain and me happened to board the flight, and one of the passengers saw me. And he freaked out, saying, I'm not going to sit, women don't know how to drive. I'm not going to sit in a plane which is going to be piloted by a female. We had a bit of convincing to do, pacifying the passenger, and eventually he decided to continue on the flight. That happens, and now we are part, and we celebrate Women's Day with an all-women crew. So I think that is an amazing transformation that I have seen in my very small span of career life. And I hope one day we come to, you are a pilot, you're an engineer, or you're a scientist. You are not a female pilot. You are not a female scientist. You are just your profession, and your profession is you. I hope that will come, and I hope to see that too in my own career. But I think, yes, there have been times where, as I told you, I joined in quite young. I have heard people tell me, we have more experience than your age. And that's not the most nicest thing to hear at the starting, but you have to learn to ignore things. That's what you kind of learn over the time, to learn to ignore things, pick up selective hearing, as I would like to call it, and motivate yourself to keep going ahead, doing what you believe in. And the rest can wait, they can see, or they can go on talking. Now that is what I will select to hear, to let it affect me. So yeah, that's my take on the so-called woman in a male's profession.
Well,
You just do what you have to do. And I really hope for that day when I do not hear that, oh, you are a female pilot. I would really like to hear, oh, you're a pilot. Wow, that's good. I would like to hear that, and I hope that day will come someday. And I'm sure everyone on this panel will agree that they are fed up of hearing you're a female pilot, because that comes with a sense of, a lot of people have it with an aspiration, a lot of people don't. So I just hope one day it comes as a neutral ground. And as one of our panelists said, that it isn't, the cockpit doesn't know your gender. You don't carry the aircraft on your shoulders. Your responsibility is on your shoulders, not the aircraft. You fly it. And it isn't a male or a female. So yeah, I think that was really very well said.
Well said, very well. Mehr, you are still in that stage where you are pretty new, and you must be getting some kind of reaction or anything like that, any challenges you are facing? Or because of these ladies, they've smoothened your path and you're accepted pretty well? How does it
Yes.
work
It's true. It's true. I mean, things are very different. We see a lot of women engineers when we guys are going on our job. I mean, quite frankly, initially, even I was surprised. I was like, wow, finally, we have women coming in. And it's actually very inspiring to see women engineers, women doing everything. I think in today's day already, I see a lot of women doing almost everything that men do. I mean, there are definitely things that men can do, women can't do, and vice versa. So, I mean, definitely there are women. It's not going to be a long wait wherein people will stop saying, you know, that's a lady pilot. It's just going to be, we're pilots.
Correct.
These are pilots. That's about it. And yeah, that's about it. But any challenges that I faced, yeah, my only personal challenge would have been deciding to jump fields altogether. That's about.
Say that again, please. I didn't get it.
My personal challenge, what I'm talking about, would just be simply deciding and changing fields altogether from a commerce background, commerce field, something that had to do with law, and jumping into aviation. That was about it. Apart from that, everything's been smooth.
Okay, all right. I just was wondering, you know, you guys have strict rules and strict measures and all that things before and after the flight, or when you take the flight. Are they really as rigorous as people say that you have to do this before your flight schedule, and you have, you know, you have to do this? Is there anything that very regimental that you guys have to go through, like weight wise, or you know, I know you don't drink before or whatever so many hours, but anything else that is very typical that you guys are women pilots, and or for pilots for that matter, that you all have to do compared to other professions? Anyone?
Okay, I'll just speak on that.
Yeah.
So we have our medicals, which happens every year, and we have to be medically fit under certain standards for your BMI and your weight. So that has to be, the only point is if you're 10%, then you do a few extra tests. If you're 20%, you do further, and 30%. So your pricks just increase and the lab tests just increase. And so that is the only issue in the civil. Personally, I feel if I have to wear trousers, I would like to be in shape. That's the only thing I'm very conscious about. But the standards apart from that, I think are just that, no, we should be well rested, well nourished, because when we go for our flight, we have to be fresh and probably have a bite to eat, because, you know, it keeps the sugar levels high. So these are the day-to-day aspects that we have to look. So we all have to have our meals on board. We have to keep having something like, so that is the one reasons why the airlines also provide us with meals on board. Some of us carry our stuff from home. Definitely, like you said, not to drink. That is a legal requirement, because we used to do a breath analyzer test every flight before every departure. But now, because of the COVID, we're not doing the tests. We are, however, signing a declaration that we are haven't had a drink and we are fit to fly, and we have a random check once in a while. Those are the things that we have as in preparations for the flight.
Oh, okay. All right. And what about safety features? Do you all kind of have to check around to make sure everything is okay before you take off, so that you don't get blamed that this was not done, that was not, because in case an emergency arises, as far as the safety feature is concerned?
Like the saying goes, safety is a part of, I mean, it's just not the aircraft. It's right from, you know, leaving the house and making sure that your cab driver is not overspeeding or talking on the phone. Safety starts from there. And every aspect of safety is right from the office to going to the aircraft. And we have to do a certain checks of the aircraft inside and outside that we have to do. Everybody, right from the engineer to the ground personnel, the security personnel, they have their SOPs that they have to follow. But then when it comes to safety, it is personal safety as well as the air side, what we call the airport, the aircraft. We have to look out, keep a sharp eye for anything which is out. You know, these days, even security, we have to be, you know, wary of people and stuff lying around. Even if it's a nail on the tarmac, that is an aspect of safety that we have to keep an eye out for.
You know, you guys take off and you land on various places and during various weathers. Is there something that you have seen somewhere, or, you know, some different point of view when you are landing or taking off, which says, you know, this particular scenario has made my life worth taking up this profession. I know Arohi has gone through that a lot, but have you ladies in our normal flying gone through that? Is that possible, or we are too commercialized, too much, too, you know, industrialized for you to get such kind of a feeling when you take off or land, the best part, your feature for?
Can I say that?
Yeah, sure.
Like Priya said, in an airline, since we have fixed routes and fixed destinations, I'm sure certain places, like when you take off from Maldives or a Seychelles or land into one of these places, is absolutely beautiful. Or if you're doing, you know, over the mountains, close to the Himalayas, when you're doing Europe, Kainaz has probably seen a lot of those sites. And also then my personal favorite was Paro in Bhutan, which is an absolute delight for a pilot, I think, skill-wise, to land. They don't let you go in there without you having their local pilot sitting behind you. And he tells you right to the end what to do, because they don't have an instrument procedure to get you in for landing, which is what we normally use. So everything is just a visual, what we call. And all your life you've been told, you know, believe your instruments and do what your instruments tell you, and don't do this, don't do that. And there's this guy sitting behind you. He's briefed you on the ground, of course, and all of a sudden, you know, you're coming in right at the end, and he's like, okay, turn, bank, you know, bank 45 degrees. And you're like, I'm not doing that. And he's like, Captain, you don't do that. You're not going to make the runway. And, you know, he's doing that out. He's doing this day in and day out. So you're sitting there listening to a person tell you what to do. It's a little unnerving, but that sight is absolutely brilliant, absolutely, you know, a once in a lifetime experience for most of us. So
with you actually in the aircraft, you pick him up from your...
He actually flies down commercially to, supposing I'm starting from Bombay and going to Paro, he will come from Paro. So he'll come on a Druke aircraft, say from Paro to Calcutta, Calcutta to Bombay, and then he fly back with me.
Oh, okay. So it's right from
in the cockpit
with you.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you get instructions when you reach that point, that kind of...
No. That is what ATC normally does, but he's sitting in the cockpit with me.
Oh, okay.
And he's briefed me on the ground in Bombay, of course, and he's made one little drawing that he's done with his hand. And he's like, okay, so you'll come here, there'll be a blue roof, it's called Smith's house, and then you turn left. And I'm like, okay. But you know, when you have to do it real time, it's fun, to say the least.
Yes, I can. That sounds... Do you know, you have plenty of rule books and plenty of stuff that is you're supposed to do, you're supposed to observe, you're supposed to learn and things like that. Do you have something of your own little self rules, which you say, this is what I'm going to follow, not against the rule book that you're given, but something in you that says, this is important, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is how I'm going to follow. Do you guys have something like that, or you just follow the book that you're given?
Following the book and following SOPs, I think, is the most important for any of us pilots. I think all of us would agree, because we have so many different people from all over. So, you know, if you have a standard procedure, everybody's on the same page. However, personally, I have a few things that I always remember. So given a choice, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying illegal, but between legal and safe, I personally choose safe. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it illegally, but just because I'm legal doesn't mean I'm safe. So I make it a conscious decision that, you know, because to me, every day.
Have you done something like that, or this is just at the back of your mind that you will?
No, this is a way of life, I think, for all pilots, and you have to have that in the back of your mind. You know, certain things like like you hear people, the older generation tell you that every takeoff is optional, every landing is mandatory. So when you get into a situation, make sure you get what I'm saying, right? Don't get into a situation on the ground. It's better to be on the ground wishing you were up there than to be up there wishing you were on the ground.
True.
So if you keep all these things in mind, you will, make it comfortably without scaring yourself for the next few years, I think. And also, I think what happens initially, you start, with no experience and a bag full of luck. The trick is to fill your bag of experience before you run out of the luck.
So true. Very well said, Ramona.
So I think for all pilots, I think everybody on this panel will agree with me. Everybody's been there for a few years will agree with most of these things.
Very well said. Just the last, I think we are running out of time, but just the last. Do you guys have any message for the next gen for your profession? Can I start with Priya? Since you have the dual experience, join the forces. And
I think it's an amazing career for women. And before I forget, I think I want to let all of you know that India has the most number of women pilots. I don't know if you know that the world average of women pilots is about 2%, 2 to 3%, whereas India is crossing 13%. So that is the number of women pilots in India. And personally, when I fly these days, almost every other carrier has a lady on board, and you can hear them on the radio. And sometimes if it's my company aircraft, I know that, the boy is on the radio, but the lady is on the controls, So that is the number of women who are flying these days. When I started off, actually, let me tell you, I started in 1993. And those days, when we used to give an RT call, there used to be cat calls on the radio. I mean, the guys would actually mimic female voices because, there were no women on RT. And I knew that if it was another lady, it was either Air India, because there were just a couple of them in Air India at that time. And then the rest were all my coastmates who were in the air, And then a few years later, we started having lady controllers. And that was so exciting for us because we always said, sir. And then we had such a thrill to say, good morning, ma'am, And these days, having a lady in the air traffic control or having another lady in the air, another pilot, it's just so common. Even when I got commissioned in the Air Force in 1994, the Indian Air Force had invited a lot of representatives from every major Air Force. I think India was the number 4th to start with women pilots in flying, apart from US and UK and I think Iran or somebody else. I'm not too sure of the statistics. So we had about 20 people from different airlines who had come, the US Air Force, the Royal Air Force, and even the Kenyan. And when we had a little meeting with them, they were so surprised to see Indian women as pilots, because how the Westerners, they have a perception of India is all, land of snakes and tigers and elephants walking on the streets. So the same impression was women in saris carrying pots on their head, So they actually told us that. They said, we couldn't imagine to find a bunch of educated English-speaking women. And, that was the perception of India. Mm-hmm. And I think India and the Air Force has come a long way. I would like to thank the Air Force for giving me this opportunity, because like I said, I couldn't have afforded being a commercial pilot because I don't think my father had the money for putting me through a flying school. I joined the Air Force with zero. I would say zero money. They even gave me the train fare to come to the academy. So that is the kind of training that I've gone through. So I owe it all to the Air Force. But today I'm able to send my daughter put my daughter through a flight school, and I'm doing pretty well thanks to the career. It's a well-paying career. And also for a lady, it is something, like I said, in commercial, like she was mentioning, we get a roster for the whole month. I know exactly what I'm doing the whole month. I know when my offs are going to be and when I'm going to have the evenings, they're off. And especially when you have children, most airlines have adapted their rosters to accommodate working women. Just to give an example, in my airline, AirAsia India, we don't have night stops, so I come home every day. we have a contract which you fly for 21 days and you have 9 days off, which works out very well if you have small children. I know for sure Indigo has a contract for working mothers as well, where your weekends are off and you can choose how much you fly. Obviously, there is a little bit of a pay cut there. But then I think if you have to choose between your family and your career, you can do justice if you have a job in this kind of a, and obviously it is something I honestly speaking, I would say that flying for me is not a job. It's something that I love doing. I think it's like a hobby. It's like I wake up every morning happy to go to work. And at the end of the month, I get a nice pay. So that is how I look at my job. I'm very thrilled to be flying. And I don't have those Monday morning blues. First of all, I don't know when Mondays come and Tuesdays go. But then to start, my work actually is something that I love doing. And like I said, I'm getting paid for my hobby. That's how I look at it. And I think women are doing very well in this profession. I think obviously people say the teaching is the best and all that, but I think flying is also quite a nice job. I mean, I've let my daughter go into it. Had it not been so rosy, I think I would not have told my daughter to be a pilot. So I rest my case with that.
Excellent, brilliant. Anyone else wants to give any pearls of wisdom to the next gen? Because we had quite a lot of, we have quite a lot of messages which says that my daughter wants to become one and my son said that and things like that. So next generation, now we are not distinguishing between the genders. So any message? You all recommend it right, left, right, center, or you all say, be aware, be careful, think of this before you jump into it. Is there anything like that we can hear from you?
I would like to share.
Yes,
sorry. No, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll go second. It's fine. You can go first.
Thank you. No, I would like to say, whichever profession you choose, don't think of it today, I like it. Think of it what you can see yourself doing maybe 10 years from now. Like I met a couple of my friends. They asked me, how can you sit in a cockpit? You have no view. You're just looking at blue clouds or just blue. But for me, I get to see a lot of colors. It's what you want to see. It's what you think you can do, say 10 years from now. And as Priya rightfully said, it's amazing to get paid to do what you love. The payment is the bonus. You're getting to do what you love to do every day. That's the perk. And that's the main focus. So as far as aviation and goes, yes, I love it. And that's why I did it. If someone else does feel something similar or more, yes, you should. But don't do it because it's a fad. Don't do it because you think it looks cool. Do it because you want to, and that's something that you can do for the rest of your life. And it wants, like the thought, if I have a flight, I wake up with that excitement that yes, I'm going to go back into the cockpit. That excitement that is this flight going to be same like my previous flight on this sector? It may not be. So that excitement keeps you, is like a driving force. If you feel that, please go ahead, join this path. If you don't, then there are a lot of options. And one should not be confined themselves to, okay, this is what is the current fad. Do what you believe in and what you think you should. That's what I feel, and that's what I would tell anybody who wants to get into aviation. Please do go ahead, do it. It is an amazing profession. I can't thank myself and my family for the day I decided to get into this job. The day I decided that I want to be a pilot is the best decision I have ever taken. That's at least that's what I have to say.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry for interpret. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so the fact that, a lot of kids get into aviation because of the glamour world and because of the money, which they feel it's very important. But it's rightly said that it's not always about money, Imagine flying like 70 hours a month and not enjoying it, just doing it for the sake of money and just struggling yourself just to wake up maybe like 3 a.m. sometimes, maybe 1 a.m., maybe in the afternoon, and pushing yourself to the airport. So, and the fact that when I speak to a lot of kids, especially in high school or like, youth forums and stuff, and one of the weird question they ask me is like, what is the one thing that would make them a better pilot? And I tell them like, agar aapko pata chale to mujhe bhi bata dena, because I have no idea who is a better pilot and who's not. Because, pilot is such a profession that you have to keep on learning every single day. Every flight is different. And it is difficult for some people. It also depends on individual. Like, I am a slow learner. I struggle a lot to learn new things, but I am also a steady learner, whereas many of my friends are very fast learners. They're amazing pilots, but they are not good at things which I do, and I'm not good at few things which they do. So it's very important to keep working on yourself every single day, to work hard. And there's no such thing as natural pilot. Each one of us on this panel has worked extremely hard, and we are still working on ourselves and trying to reach that level of best pilot, what people call it. So it's very important to just to stay focused, and like rightly said, just do what you love. That's very important.
Ramona?
So like everyone said, it's a great profession to be in. But like Kainaz and Priya and Arohi said, that please don't do it for the glamour or the money, because while there's all of that, you have to study, like I said earlier. You have a medical every year, so you have to be physically fit. Looking at me, it doesn't look like I do a medical every year, but it's still there. Like Priya said, I have to do all the tests that they have, okay, and maybe 500 more, but I've managed so far, and I think I will manage for the next few years as well. Be ready to sacrifice birthdays, anniversaries, Diwali, Christmas, New Year, sitting in London, shivering, doing a webinar, and all of that. So if get into it knowing fully well what you're getting into. Also, aviation is, there's a lot of demand and supply. Like if you know right now, there's a lot of pilots who've lost their jobs because of the current situation. So please have some kind of basic education, which you can do. I mean, if you're doing your flying, at least finish your basic graduation side by side, so that, in case you don't get a job, you have something. Because how long are you going to sit at home saying, no, I'm a pilot, I'm not going to do anything? There are a lot of people who say no, because sometimes what happens is when you've been a pilot for 15, 18, 19 years, you don't know how to do anything else. Like I don't know how to do anything else.
So you say you must have a backup career? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying a backup career. I'm not saying a backup career, but I'm saying that if you can finish your basic graduation, okay. Like today, a lot of people do their BSc. I think like Arohi's done her BSc, I think she mentioned, and then she's done her flying. I mean, you can do your BA or BCom or whatever through correspondence.
Okay, got you. I got you.
Because I mean, you'd be lucky if you get a job almost immediately. Some people are lucky and some people are not. And sometimes you could even lose, I mean, in a job like this because of your medical or anything you could.
Because you're always on your toes, right? That I have to be medical right, I have to do this right, I have to do that right, so many hours and things like that. But that goes.
Sorry?
I said, I know you guys have to be on your toes all the time, but that goes for other professions too, that kind of a way.
So. Yes, that's for any other profession. Like she said, it's just odd hours. Sometimes it's 3 in the morning, sometimes it's 3 in the night. But after a while, you get used to that, like any other. And I think that's part of the thrill, right? Because I mean, if you were doing the same thing every day at 8 o'clock in the morning and coming back at 5 in the evening and going to the same place every day, there's no real.
Okay, don't rub it in. We've done that for years now. Don't rub it in.
I didn't mean it that way. I'm just.
Yeah, I'm just joking. Mehr, would you do it all over again? Your struggle of changing your profession?
Definitely. I mean, it is because of whatever I have been through so far that I am where I am today. It has taught me a lot of things. It's taught me to take failure as well, and get back up, change fields, and yeah, that's it.
So you would recommend it, saying if you want to do it?
Definitely, I'd say, but definitely take into consideration all the challenges. Take into consideration the hard work, the fact that you're going to be studying throughout your life, and missing parties, missing birthdays, not being around, having friends and family grumbling you're never there. So
right.
yeah,
I hear
be
you.
ready for all of that.
It gets better after a while, Mehr. They'll stop grumbling in a few years. They'll get used to it.
Okay.
I think they're getting there for me.
Wisdom, pearls of wisdom. Arohi, I have a question from you for one of our members from America. It says, did you ever have any mechanical problems with the aircraft during your long journey?
Yes, I
We
did.
are now open to questions from you, audience.
So like during my flights, I had a lot of failures. Once I remember I had a radio failure when I was flying in Canada, and I was flying in a control zone, and the radio controller was so angry. He's like, "What are you doing with a effed up radio on your airplane and flying in VFR in an IFR condition?" So yeah, I've had a lot of problems, and flying in ultralight around the world was itself a problem because I have also faced like a lot of charters, asking me to increase my speed because, I was slowing them down on approach while landing. So yeah, I did have radio failure so many times. I had electric failure. I once I had a rectifier failure in flight. So yeah, there's been a lot of them, and few I cannot really discuss here. So
Okay. I don't see many questions. Any other questions? Shernaz, is there anything? If not, then I'd like to request Villie to summarize. She's a Mumbai chapter chair. I'd like her to summarize, and thank you ladies profusely for bearing with us for so long. It's gone way beyond the time that we expected, but we couldn't stop listening to you, and you did well. Villie, may I request you to give the closing remarks, please?
Okay, thank you, Behroze, and I'll make this quick. This whole journey was fabulous. I mean, I was hanging on to every word that you all were saying, and you made it sound so exciting. And at the same time, you all were so unassuming and made it feel so easy somehow. I also enjoyed the humor that went into all your answers. I mean, it was really fantastic because you made it sound, we enjoyed that subtle kind of humor that you used. Arohi, your journey was breathtaking and hair raising at times. And the mountains seemed very close at times. I can tell you, I had my, you know, but let me tell you that we all shared your moment of glory when you were with carrying the Indian flag out there. And it took a lot of courage to do what you did. So that was congratulations and really good achievement that you have under your belt.
thank you.
And I'll just round up with a few things that, like Captain Priya, I'll just talk about some quotes that you gave. And you said, you don't have to marry a naval officer, you can be one. And I love that. And I also love the one about the aircraft, not knowing whether, you're a boy or a girl. And the kind of satisfaction that you get out of flying. Ramona, I enjoyed the story about the Rolex watch with your grandfather. And so many things that you said, that
Did you ever fly him through? Did you ever fly him? Did you take him around ever, your grandfather?
Ramona.
No, unfortunately, I didn't.
Just wanted to know if you showed off in person.
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to take him around, but I would rub the Rolex in his face every chance I got.
And for Ramona, even the one that you talked about where there was this remark saying, are we brave enough? Because female, and are we brave enough? And, I can just imagine what the scene was like at that time. And the one that you talked about, the takeoffs are optional, but the landings are mandatory. And that really makes you think. Kainaz was talking about, the time that she would love to be called just a pilot and not a female pilot. And that was something I appreciated. Mehr talked about her challenges from moving from the corporate world to, being a pilot after so many years. And that must have taken, again, a lot of courage too. So the tip that you gave, and you talked quite a bit for the younger generation, and you said that to sum up everyone's comments, do it if you love doing it, not for the glamour or the money. and at least complete your graduation. And I absolutely agree with that, because that was what my mother used to keep telling my sister. Of course, she's not a pilot, but the field she was in catering, and my mother insisted that she always, finished her graduation. So that was really wonderful. We had a fabulous evening, and thank you so very much.
Shernaz, may I request you, vote of thanks?
I don't know what to say, Behroze. I'm just amazed, astounded. I was just like going tuck, 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 every time they said something. But I sum it up in just 5 words, and that is thank you very much, Arohi, for giving us that exciting journey. Priya, when I first talked to you, I told her I wanted to always be a pilot. So what stopped you from becoming in joining the Indian Air Force? I keep that in mind to all the youngsters who want to become pilots. Thank you, Priya, for your wonderful journey. Kainaz, I've seen you as a little kid years ago, and today to be sharing the same platform with you as an aviator, I would say, and not a female pilot. I say hats off to you and your family. It's a wonderful feeling. Ramona, I just can't stop listening to you and your stories. Despite having such a, it's a wonderful feeling that if you love what you do and you get paid for it, amazing. Thank you, Mehr, for telling us, yes, we make career choices, we make the choices, and we have to go by the choices. We've got to live by the choices. And this is what all our people, all our young ladies had to say. But I'd like to thank a few people out here. Behroze, thank you so much for getting this wonderful program for the We India group, the Mumbai chapter, the Bangalore chapter, and the Toronto chapter. When the chapters come together, it's an amazing program. Thank you. We'd like to thank Yasvi Tantra for helping us with the digital support. Yasvi, as always, Tantra Trek gives us a great support all the time. Yasvi, thank you so much. I'd like to thank someone who's done a lot of back-end work. His name is Dilnavaz Shroff. Dilnavaz, thank you so much for creating those wonderful creatives. And with so many ladies every time saying, hey, put this, hey, put that. And you would say, of course, ladies. And that was so wonderful. So as we end this today, I'd like to thank our global president, Adel Davar, for always being there to support us, and to so many. Captain Percy, are you there? And to all the people out there, if I don't take your names, thank you so much, participants, because without this, this would not have been a program. And as we end, I'm the secretary of the Bangalore chapter, and we have one mantra set up by our chapter chair, former Air Marshal Villie Major. Let's touch the sky with glory. And in this decade, in this year, I don't say the year, I say the decade. Thank you, ladies, for helping us to realize that we can touch the sky with glory. Thank you so much, the We core team, for really doing such a wonderful work. And thank you, captains. Salute. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Good
Behroze,
night.
over to you.
God bless. Godspeed. Keep flying.
Good night. God bless. And really have a great decade. Yeah.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
us.
you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.